Walking into the pristine, immaculately manicured grounds of the All England Club just days before Wimbledon's most prestigious matches reveals an atmosphere thick with a sudden, devastating royal chill. Long before the public caught a single whisper of what was happening behind the scenes, a massive, silent crisis was threatening to tear the royal household apart from the inside out. The problem facing the palace wasn't a standard scheduling conflict or a simple ticket mishap. It was an explosive, hidden war over the most sacred, carefully protected sanctum in British sports, the royal box itself. The tension behind closed doors was thick enough to suffocate, with senior event organizers moving frantically through restricted meetings and handling confidential logistics under an absolute cloud of panic. Everyone connected to the tournament knew that an unforgivable boundary had been crossed, and the entire institution was resting on a razor's edge. The true crisis centered around a terrifying panic that centuries of royal heritage were about to be cheapened, commercialized, and pulled directly into a Hollywood-style media circus by individuals completely outside the working royal family. Palace insiders were completely stunned, watching a desperate power struggle unfold that threatened to permanently alter the rules of royal visibility. There was a palpable fear that a premier British institution was being aggressively weaponized as a personal PR playground, and the palace was scrambling to execute an emergency containment strategy just to survive the impending global fallout. This behind-the-scenes nightmare escalated rapidly because the timing of the disruption could not have been more volatile or insensitive. The monarchy was already navigating a period of intense vulnerability, with the public's eye fixed firmly at Kensington Palace. To drag one of the most tradition-bound sanctuaries of British culture into an emotional family battlefield was viewed by court insiders as a direct threat to institutional stability. Tournament coordinators suddenly found themselves trapped in a brutal vice between royal sensitivities and relentless global media pressure. On one side stood deep concerns surrounding protocol, hierarchy, and the Princess of Wales' long-standing flawless relationship with the event itself. On the other stood the unavoidable, exhausting reality that a singular, controversial presence would ignite a worldwide press storm, regardless of the seating chart. Officials were genuinely sweating, terrified that any appearance of preferential treatment or bending the rules would trigger widespread accusations of favoritism, while an outright rejection might provoke another massive wave of public controversy. The entire tournament risked being completely overshadowed by an emotionally charged spectacle that would dominate international headlines for weeks. It exposed a deep, uncomfortable reality that the public has increasingly noted. Certain individuals seem entirely determined to continue jerking the royal family around simply to capture front-page space and maintain their own global branding, completely indifferent to the disruption it causes the institution. To truly understand how this high-stakes silent war reached such a dangerous boiling point, you have to go back to the very beginning, to a discreet back-channel message that the public was never supposed to see. The request did not arrive through direct palace communication or established royal protocol channels. Instead, it moved quietly through royal intermediaries tied to event coordination, arriving like a sudden shockwave just as preparations for the tournament were reaching their peak. At first, tournament staff assumed it involved ordinary attendance logistics. After all, Wimbledon has long operated within an intricate web of rigid traditions, ceremonial seating arrangements, and carefully managed guest protocols. But insiders claim total alarm began spreading almost immediately when it became clear that Meghan Markle was allegedly asking for private, exclusive access to the royal box, completely bypassing the traditional gatekeepers. Sources familiar with the situation whisper that the timing of the request absolutely stunned senior organizers because preparations surrounding the Princess of Wales' role at Wimbledon were already under intense scrutiny due to ongoing public attention surrounding her health and gradual return to royal duties. As patron of the All England Club and the absolute face of the tournament, Catherine remained deeply involved in key ceremonial planning discussions, despite mounting personal pressures behind the scenes. For the monarchy, Wimbledon represented continuity, stability, and public tradition, precisely the kind of institution the Crown fiercely protects during periods of internal turbulence. The sudden request quickly evolved into a massive institutional problem because it didn't just ask for a seat, it allegedly came attached to a wave of unusual celebrity-style demands. Whispers inside organizational circles intensified once rumors began surfacing about potential special conditions involving visibility management, controlled guest movement, security perimeters, and unprecedented restrictions surrounding photography inside the royal box environment. For longtime Wimbledon staff accustomed to strict ceremonial consistency, the situation triggered immediate, absolute unease. For generations, the royal box has never functioned as an ordinary VIP section reserved merely for fame, influence, or Hollywood entourages. It has operated as a symbolic extension of royal duty itself, a place where the monarchy appears not as entertainers or influencers, but as custodians of national identity and tradition. As many passionate royal watchers have accurately pointed out across the internet, the perks of the crown belong strictly to those who do the grueling day-to-day work for the country. The moment someone quits the official role, they lose the right to demand access to spaces specifically set aside for working royals. The introduction of these highly sensitive entourage complications threatened to fundamentally disrupt the carefully balanced traditions of the tournament, setting up a head-on collision between two completely different visions of modern royalty. On one side stood Catherine, representing traditional royal restraint and institutional continuity. On the other stood a celebrity-driven approach centered on personal narrative control. Catherine reportedly viewed the entire situation through a stark, uncompromising lens, summarized privately as institution versus spectacle, firmly believing that Wimbledon traditions could not bend around personal sensitivities or celebrity management expectations without completely weakening the public integrity of the event. The stage was set for an unprecedented showdown, and the palace was about to deliver a response that would echo far beyond the tennis courts. But while palace officials frantically attempted to keep the bitter disagreement entirely contained within private administrative channels, whispers about Catherine's icy response were already beginning to leak beyond royal walls with devastating momentum. The sheer finality of the decision caught everyone off guard, transforming what began as a quiet request into an absolute institutional lockdown. According to multiple well-placed sources, the Princess of Wales's alleged response was described as calm, exceptionally polite, and completely immovable. There would be no special exceptions, no private restructuring of the seating chart, and zero alteration of Wimbledon protocol for an individual who had walked away from the family. Insiders now claim that this quiet, clinical refusal triggered one of the most tense, white-knuckled, behind-the-scenes royal moments since the Sussexes stepped back from official duties years earlier. The core of the issue, which resonated deeply through the halls of the palace and later exploded across the internet, came down to a fundamental rule of the monarchy. You cannot enjoy the prestigious perks of the crown if you refuse to do the grueling everyday work that supports it. When the public caught wind of this behind-the-scenes maneuver, the outrage was instant, with many fiercely arguing that a non-working royal simply does not deserve access to exclusive spaces that are explicitly set aside for those who serve the institution. The chilling manner in which this decision was allegedly delivered to the opposing camp left senior aides completely stunned. Reports suggest there were absolutely no emotional confrontations, no raised voices, and no dramatic scenes behind palace gates to feed the global tabloids. Instead, Catherine handled the matter with the exact same disciplined restraint and ironclad composure that has increasingly defined her high-stakes public role within the modern monarchy. This clinical execution only amplified the tension, creating a silent ripple effect that left organizers acutely aware that the line had been drawn in permanent ink. The general consensus among observers was that the request itself represented an unbelievable amount of gall, a calculated attempt to rewrite the rules of royal engagement for personal benefit. For the palace, allowing a celebrity-driven entourage to dictate terms to a premier British institution was a complete non-starter. Critics online immediately mirrored this sentiment, venting that the sheer audacity of trying to strong-arm the royal family into providing a front-row promotional platform was genuinely hard to believe. The conversation quickly shifted from a simple debate over a seating chart to a much larger, highly volatile discussion about entitlement, respect, and the boundaries of the modern crown. Sources familiar with the suffocating atmosphere surrounding these frantic discussions whispered that the aides privately described the decision as final almost immediately after the princess's position became clear. For officials who were already struggling to contain the mounting media pressure around the event, that single word carried an enormous, crushing weight. Final meant there was absolutely no room left for negotiations, no back-alley adjustments, and no last-minute compromises designed to avoid public discomfort or media backlash. As global speculation intensified by the hour, reports suggest Prince William remained firmly and fiercely aligned with Catherine behind closed doors. According to insiders familiar with these tense palace dynamics, William viewed the entire dispute as a critical test for whether traditional royal institutions could maintain their authority during a period increasingly shaped by rampant celebrity culture, relentless press intrusion, and public narrative battles. The Prince of Wales firmly believed that any deviation from long-standing Wimbledon customs under such emotionally sensitive circumstances could create a highly dangerous precedent, one capable of weakening institutional boundaries across other major royal events as well. That concern extended far beyond tennis or seating arrangements. It touched directly on the monarchy's broader, exhausting struggle to preserve its discipline and symbolic continuity while navigating years of internal family fracture and external PR warfare. This unified front from the Waleses sent a clear message that the palace was no longer willing to play passive defense. For years, the public had watched the royal family endure endless media cycles, public accusations, and carefully timed press releases, often wondering why the institution continued to let itself be jerked around in such a public manner. The online community echoed this exact frustration, with many openly questioning why the royal household even allowed these discussions to become a ridiculous debate in the first place, when a simple, definitive no was the only answer required. Period. The crowd's exasperation highlighted a deep fatigue with the ongoing drama, signaling that the public was more than ready to see the monarchy stand its ground with total authority. By delivering that exact, unyielding refusal, Catherine didn't just manage a guest list, she effectively shut down what many perceived as a relentless quest for front-page space and unearned validation. Royal commentators quickly began framing Catherine's alleged stance as part of a much larger, historic transformation taking place within the fabric of the monarchy itself. Once viewed by the public primarily as the approachable, smiling, and supportive future queen, insiders now increasingly described her as a fierce, uncompromising protector of institutional dignity, a royal perfectly willing to absorb intense public scrutiny in order to preserve the ancient royal structure. According to several seasoned observers, Wimbledon had quietly become a symbolic battlefield representing two very different, irreconcilable visions of modern royalty. One vision emphasized quiet service, strict hierarchy, and unwavering tradition, while the other reflected global celebrity influence, glossy image management, and personal narrative control. Catherine completely refused to allow one of Britain's most carefully guarded traditions to drift into that chaotic conflict without absolute resistance. Meanwhile, speculation surrounding the reaction from the California camp intensified at an amazing speed across royal media circles.
Sources close to the situation claim that the flat refusal was interpreted by Sussex supporters as yet another blatant example of institutional rigidity and emotional exclusion from the very royal spaces they once occupied publicly. The immediate fallout revealed a growing toxic bitterness, but within palace circles, insiders strongly insisted the decision was never personal retaliation or petty social slight. Instead, it was an act of necessary containment during an already highly unstable period for the monarchy, proving that the crown's boundaries were officially closed to those who wished to operate outside its rules.
The moment that quiet clinical refusal leaked out into the broader media ecosystem, the public fascination didn't just grow, it completely erupted into a global obsession. Behind closed doors in California, royal watchers are already whispering about the absolute storm that must have hit the Sussex household when that bad news finally crossed the Atlantic. One can only imagine the kind of epic temper tantrum that was thrown the exact second it became clear that the gate keys to Wimbledon's most exclusive sanctum were firmly locked away. To the public, this wasn't just a regular disagreement over a tennis tournament. It was the ultimate proof that the boundaries of the British monarchy were finally striking back. The online streets have turned into an absolute digital firing line, with thousands of people pointing out that the sheer gall required to even make such a request is genuinely hard to believe. There is a massive collective exhaustion with what people perceive as a relentless attempt to jerk the royal family around just to secure front page space and maintain a personal brand. The conversation has shifted from polite palace gossip into a fierce worldwide debate about entitlement, duty, and who actually belongs within the sacred inner circle of the House of Windsor. What makes this entire standoff so fascinating to the public is the brilliant strategic way the Princess of Wales completely neutralized the situation before it could turn into a media circus. Seasoned observers are openly analyzing the alleged request, calling it the ultimate move of an absolute wild card. The consensus among traditionalists is that the request was a calculated win-win trap designed to manipulate the palace from the very beginning. If the palace gave in, it would provide an unmatched global platform for visibility, cameras, and luxury branding right in the middle of the royal box. But if they denied it, it would instantly provide fresh dramatic victim content to put into a next bombshell book project. This exact realization has left the public completely rallying behind Catherine's immovable stance. People are aggressively typing that if the true goal was simply to sit down and enjoy an afternoon of world-class, incredible tennis, there was nothing stopping anyone from just buying a general admission ticket like a normal spectator. The fact that it had to be the royal box or nothing proved to the entire world that this was never about sports. It was about forcing the institution to validate a lifestyle and a celebrity status that was voluntarily abandoned years ago. This wave of public frustration isn't just contained in the United Kingdom either. It has crossed oceans, sparking an incredibly harsh backlash among international onlookers, especially in America. For a long time, global audiences watched the royal soap opera with a sense of detached curiosity, but the mood has dramatically soured. Now, countless international observers are openly admitting that their only remaining interest in the Sussexes is waiting for them to finally get a total, definitive institutional smackdown, because the endless drama is starting to deeply embarrass everyone on a world stage. There is a growing sense of mockery surrounding the household, with critics asking who could possibly be naive or dumb enough to trust anything coming out of that camp anymore. The public perception of Prince Harry has taken a massive, devastating hit as well, with commentators openly lamenting how a once beloved high-ranking royal prince has essentially been neutralized and turned into a total zero.
The popular sentiment is that he allowed himself to be completely transformed into a powerless figure, dragged along by the relentless demands of Hollywood visibility and global image management, while sacrificing his own heritage in the process. But the real unfiltered tea behind this entire Wimbledon crisis is how the public is now aggressively turning their anger straight toward the very top of the royal hierarchy, demanding immediate and ruthless structural consequences. People are completely losing their patience with the palace's endless strategy of polite silence and gentle containment, and they are openly calling out King Charles III for what they see as a severe lack of leadership. The demand to strip the Sussexes of their remaining royal titles is echoing across the entire digital landscape with an absolute roar. Viewers are screaming that the king needs to pull the titles immediately so these individuals can never again attempt to step into exclusive royal spaces or leverage the prestige of the crown for private gain. Traditionalists are growing entirely furious with Charles's softer, more conciliatory approach, literally demanding that he grow some backbone and finally make a definitive decision. People are asking point-blank if the king is just actively choosing to ignore everything Queen Elizabeth explicitly advised him to do before her death. There is a dangerous, uncomfortable comparison being drawn by the public, with critics cuttingly labeling the current situation as a case of a weak Harry merely reflecting a weak king, creating a massive crisis of confidence in how the monarchy handles internal threats. While officials inside Buckingham Palace work frantically behind the scenes to suppress any further leaks and keep the fallout contained, the atmosphere between the rival households has degenerated into an absolute permafrost. The old ways of handling family disputes through quiet diplomacy and compromise are entirely dead, replaced by a cold administrative discipline that refuses to bend for personal sensitivities. Catherine's unyielding stance at Wimbledon has effectively signaled a massive permanent shift in the balance of power, showing that the next generation of the monarchy under William and Catherine will operate with far firmer boundaries and zero tolerance for perceived disruption. The palace is locked in a full containment mode, terrified of how much more of this explosive story is about to become public, as global media interest reaches an absolute fever pitch. But as the administrative teams work late into the night to lock down the communication channels, the initial shock of the refusal is starting to harden into a permanent reality, setting the stage for a final, historic realization of what the future of the House of Windsor will truly look like when the era of emotional accommodation is gone forever.
The final matches of the tournament may have concluded, and the pristine grass courts of Wimbledon may have been cleared, but the profound silence left vibrating behind the palace walls has officially welded the gates shut with a level of finality that has left the entire Sussex faction completely reeling. By the time the fortnight came to a close, everyone inside the royal landscape understood that this wasn't just a temporary disagreement over a seating chart or a tricky logistical puzzle to be forgotten by next summer. It was a definitive, historic declaration, a clear, unyielding signal that the next generation of the monarchy under Prince William and the Princess of Wales will operate with a much colder discipline, significantly firmer boundaries, and far less tolerance for perceived institutional disruption. For members of the old guard and modern courtiers alike, the reported Wimbledon refusal was not merely a private social slight or a petty family snub. It was a masterclass in institutional preservation, proving that the ancient architecture of the crown will no longer bend, compromise, or alter its sacred ceremonial traditions for the sake of Hollywood-style image management, celebrity expectations, or personal branding. This quiet, tactical lockdown has completely unsettled various factions across the royal landscape because it pulls back the curtain on exactly how William and Catherine intend to shape the monarchy's future once their reign fully arrives.
For years, the public grew accustomed to a model of emotional flexibility, but court insiders whisper that the future king firmly believes the monarchy can no longer survive on compromise alone after enduring years of public turmoil, explosive memoirs, and relentless media warfare. Reports suggest William increasingly favors a model centered around strictly controlled visibility, a total reduction of narrative ambiguity, and a relentless protection of the ceremonial spaces tied directly to the crown's long-term authority. This approach highlights an incredibly stark, undeniable contrast beneath the surface of the palace, setting William's rigid institutional philosophy directly against King Charles III's more conciliatory, emotionally driven leadership style. While the king has often appeared motivated by a deep desire for personal healing, family reconciliation, and closing the painful rifts within his household, his heir is focused entirely on structural stability. When personal repair and the dignity of the crown collide, William and Catherine have made it crystal clear that the institution will win every single time, no matter how harsh or unforgiving the fallout may appear to the outside world. The digital audience has watched this structural shift unfold with absolute fascination, and the public verdict is a total landslide of support for the palace's new uncompromising stance. The online streets are fiercely celebrating this victory, with royal watchers cuttingly pointing out that the era of allowing outsiders to play royal dress-up is officially over. The collective sentiment echoing across the internet is that if you actively choose to walk away from the grueling, day-to-day duties of the working monarchy, you don't get to turn around and demand access to the most prestigious, symbolic sanctuaries of British heritage whenever it suits your personal brand. Commentators are bluntly stating that certain individuals are only royal in their own heads at this point, and that the sheer hypocrisy of trying to force your way into an exclusive enclosure after spending years bashing the family is genuinely shameless. The frustration has reached such a peak that people are openly asking if a literal royal telegram needs to be sent across the Atlantic just to make it understand that the bridge has been completely burned and the door is locked for life. The public is entirely backing Catherine as the ultimate institutional gatekeeper, praising her for refusing to let a premier national event be transformed into a toxic, chaotic media circus. Ultimately, the historic drama surrounding the royal box at Wimbledon has revealed a much larger, profound truth about the modern House of Windsor. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle remain figures of intense global fascination, yet they find themselves permanently suspended in a strange, isolated vacuum between royal lineage and total royal distance, close enough to generate endless headlines, but completely blocked from the true spaces of prestige and power. The palace's strategy of absolute silence throughout this entire controversy has communicated more than 1,000 official press releases ever could. In the rigid, traditional world of the monarchy, a refusal is never just a simple no. It is a boundary, a warning, and a vivid demonstration of who truly holds the power inside the family. Access to the sacred heart of the crown is no longer granted by media popularity, past history, or emotional leverage, but an unwavering, proven loyalty to the institution itself. The message left lingering in the air is beautifully clear. The monarchy has successfully defended its dignity, the rules remain absolute, and the ancient traditions of the realm will never bow to the pressures of celebrity culture. So, as we officially close this explosive chapter of behind-the-scenes royal warfare, the ultimate question rests entirely with you. What do you think about this whole high-stakes standoff? Was Princess Catherine completely justified in enforcing a strict, icy boundary to protect the sacred traditions of Wimbledon from a Hollywood media circus? Or do you think the palace is being entirely too rigid and exclusive towards Harry and Meghan? Share your true thoughts and break down the drama in the comments below. If you loved diving deep into the hidden secrets of the House of Windsor with us, don't forget to absolutely smash that like button, share this video with your fellow royal fans, and hit that subscribe button with notifications turned on so you never miss a single piece of unfiltered palace tea. Thank you so much for watching, stay tuned, and we will see you in the very next one.